Hello and welcome to Parimatch News podcast. I am your host Sarthak Karkhanis, and today we review the first test between India and Australia and also preview the Boxing Day test. So let's get it started. So here I am with which we will analyze over the next 20 minutes. A test match which didn't quite live up to the hype post this on the third day. So as we know, the third day is known as the moving day, and that day moved like a Ferrari. So we will get you all the updates from as it panned out in the first test at Adelaide and how Australia took the 1-0 lead. It was a crucial game indeed in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. As we look at how a very heartbreaking loss took place for the Indian fans, whereas Australia will be on a high. So let's start from where it began on the first day. Virat Kohli won the toss, elected to bat first, and of course there's Virat Kohli's record, which he didn't lose a test match as captain when he has won the toss. That record doesn't stand now, but that's how it was on the first day in Adelaide, and that gave hope to the Indian fans because the first test is always going to be crucial. The first session is always crucial, and India did start on a horrid note with Prithvi Shaw getting bowled to Mitchell Starc's stunning in swinging delivery with the ping ball on the second ball of the test match. So really it didn't quite pan out well in the first session, but for Prithvi Shaw. But India did manage to get a fight back. Cheteshwar Pujara and Mayank Agarwal did very well for the amount of time they batted in the first session, and that gave some confidence to Virat Kohli. Australia though did bowl pretty good lines, hitting the length and line consistently, but Cheteshwar Pujara, Virat Kohli and later Ajinkya Rahane were pretty good with their batting performance as well. As it turned out, Virat Kohli and Ajinkya Rahane were going very well in the in the second session after Pujara was dismissed for 43 of 160 balls. It might sound like he lacked the intent of scoring, and of course he wasn't quite looking to score the runs, but that was the need of the hour. Hazlewood, Cummins were consistently bowling good line and length, as we said, and so Pujara's innings was quite the need of the hour if you look, and that is where I think India really were in the pole position. But then there was a horrid mix-up between Ajinkya Rahane and Virat Kohli. An 88-run stand was broken because of a run-out between the two. Virat Kohli, and of course the curse of 2020, Virat Kohli hopes of getting his first international 100 in this year were dashed, and from there on India collapsed. There was nobody who could actually stand up and say that the platform laid down by the top 5 is very good, but nobody could capitalize on it. 56 for 7 is how it panned out, and India proposed that, and India were bowled out for a total of 244, and that's where you can think that India did lose out on an opportunity to take a firm control over the game, because mind you, Australia were very much in the game at the end of the first innings, but the momentum was swinging like a pendulum. It was oscillating pretty quickly. On the second day when India walked out, they were still quite in the game with 6 wickets for 233 runs, but they just could add 11 runs and 4 wickets. So Australia finished up the tail pretty quickly. Then Australian batsmen walked out to bat, but initially the new ball bowlers Umesh Yadav and Jasprit Bumrah were very tight with their lines, but they weren't quite attacking. But Bumrah, when he came back for the second spell, bowled pretty tight lines. So that is where you can say that Australia did get some advantage but they couldn't capitalize on it as well. So from there on, I think Bumrah and Ashwin's brilliant display of bowling began and they reduced Australia to 79 for 5. The highlights here were, of course, Bumrah's consistent line and length to the Aussie batters where they weren't quite comfortable against him. Labuschagne scored a 47 at 79 for 5 you can say it was a very good position India in, but India was very sloppy in the fielding. You can say it was by and far their worst fielding performance, dropping 6 catches in the course of the innings. And you can say that this total which Australia had of 79 for 5 at that stage when Tim Paine, their skipper, walked out to bat was a very good position India was in, but it could have been better. Tim Paine walked out to bat, and India's age-old nemesis in the Sena countries, as we call it, just began, and the tail added another 112 runs, and India couldn't really capitalize on the opportunity at the end of the second innings. Tim Paine, along with the tail, there weren't quite healthy contributions. You can say there weren't any significant contributions. Stark added 15 runs. Lyon added 10 runs, but the Cummins were out for a duck while Hazelwood added 8. But for Tim Paine, he was the one who was scoring runs in that partnership with the tail enders, and that's how it was a very, very, very good display by Tim Paine, who was later adjudged as the man of the match. What hurt India in that way was, of course, the tail, as we mentioned, and the drop catches. So it might have seemed like a lead of 60, and of course, in an away test, in a day-night test, in an away test, it seemed like a very good position India were in at. Of course, in the second innings started towards the fag end of day 2, Bumrah walked out to bat as the third, at number 3, as the night watchman, as Shaw unfortunately failed again. We will come to that and Prithvi Shaw's performance in a while, but for India, of course, this wasn't quite how they wanted it to go from Prithvi Shaw's point of view. Bumrah was batting, and at the start of the day 3, it did look like it was India's game to lose. There were discussions overnight, what total would be enough, will it be 350, will it be 300, will the pitch get quicker, and there were a lot of discussions. But what remained of course, this was anyone's game, but India had the edge over Australia. We can firmly say that India did have an edge over Australia. Come day 3, the morning of day 3, Indian fans glued to the television on Saturday morning, expecting what can be. And day 3, it is a moving day, as they call it. It did move at a very, very, very swift pace. India lost out. They were 9 for 1 when they started. They lost out wickets, and you can say that a pack of cards collapses slowly. That's how, rather than the Indian batsmen, but one after the other. Cummins angled in, straightened off the surface, outside of, in the cordon of uncertainty, nicked behind to the keeper. That was the story. Virat Kohli at 19 for 5, it was looking like this is now a bit tilted in Australia's favour. And Virat Kohli's wicket at 19 for 5, it made the scoreboard look like 19 for 6. Virat Kohli was dismissed, and he went away chasing a wide delivery outside off, looking for a cover drive to Cameron Green in the slips. And that's where it looked like were India staring at the lowest ever total in Test history. And they did score their lowest ever total of 36 for 9, because Mohammad Shami was hit on the wrist by a bouncer, and it was quite the day of nightmare. It was a nightmare in broad daylight for Indian batsmen. That's how we can describe it. Australia chased down the total with ease, but now, what are the concerns from India? What can they infer from this loss? what do they have to do ahead of the second test, what does Australia have to do, and everything from analyzing all the first test. We can say that the problem will be, of course, that Virat Kohli will be coming back to India, is unavailable for the next 3 tests, so he isn't available. So that is one of the major concerns for India. Ajinkya Rahane has to step up as a leader. So who replaces Virat Kohli? There is an option of fitting in Shubman Gill right at 4 and keeping the rest of the order same. But then if you want Shubman Gill to open, because Prithvi Shaw looks very much low on confidence. As a batsman, as a fielder, his confidence hasn't been the best. He has had a poor IPL just 2 months back. Now he has his struggles. So that isn't quite the solution, you can say. So now will India back Prithvi Shaw for the second test? Who are the options? It's KL Rahul, Shubman Gill, or are you going to slot someone like Hanuma Vihari, who opened the Boxing Day test last time around with Mayank Agarwal? And what do you do from that point of view? Or do you rejig the order? Think that Pujara should open? India have a lot of options, but the best possible option at this stage might be slotting in Shubman Gill at the top, KL Rahul coming in for Virat Kohli, and then what can happen is you can have 2 solid batters in the top 6. Other than that, of course, Wriddhiman Saha, picked as a specialist keeper, didn't quite have a very, very good first test as a keeper and as a batsman as well. So because you need to score runs, at both the stages in both the innings, it was at a stage that Rishabh Pant could have added another 100 runs in the first innings, or at least could have counter-attacked in the second, because that's how his game is. With all due respect to Wriddhiman Saha, he isn't someone who will stand up and lead for the occasions, and he hasn't been that kind of a batsman for India in his test career. So for someone like Rishabh Pant, who has scored a test 100 in Australia, who scored a test 100 in England, who has really been one of the very consistent wicketkeepers whenever he has got an opportunity with the bat, and he is a decent keeper as well. So you can expect 3 changes in the batting department in the second test, and a big blow is that Mohammad Shami has been ruled out of the Border Gavaskar Trophy. He will be replaced by Mohammad Siraj or Navdeep Saini, given that Mohammad Siraj is one of those bowlers who is very good in the A-level cricket and domestic cricket. With his pace, hit the deck bowling, he can be one of those bowlers who can be getting his debut on the Boxing Day test. So though we are potentially looking at 4 changes, minimum of 3 if the Indian team decides to give someone like Saha or Prithvi Shaw another test. So 2 to 4 changes, because you are going to definitely have 2 changes given that Virat Kohli and Mohammad Shami are unavailable. So that is how things stand from India's point of view. For Australia now, what do we look for? What do they have to look for? We discussed how the Burns and Wade were good in the second innings, but you can say that the Indian bowlers had already put their shoulders down, given that it was a horrid display in the batting, with just in a span of an hour the game changed. Even Virat Kohli said in the post-match presentation that it really hurt everyone in the dressing room, and we expected the moral to be low for the Indian bowlers as well. So to judge Burns or Wade by their performance in the second innings might not be the smartest thing for Australia to do, but frankly speaking, they don't have any option other than that. So who do they pick now? Joe Burns or Matthew Wade? Now, for that, I think Australia might just go in with someone like Joe Burns as well, slot in Matthew Wade in the lower order, but then who do they drop in the middle order? So that's the headache, and it will be interesting to see which way Tim Paine and Matthew Wade go. Now, for Australia, one major thing for India was that Steve Smith in the first innings got dismissed by Ashwin's clever bowling, having set him up in a very, very, very smart way. So that was one of the things that India will be very happy with. Other than that, you will say that Steve Smith will be expected to score runs in Melbourne, because before the first test in Adelaide, he had scored 700s in the last 8 test matches against India. His record against the men in blue is phenomenal, to say the least. So, of course, the first innings was in very much went in India's favour, with Ashwin and Bumrah really keeping the Aussie batters in check. But Australia will, of course, look at it and say that we shouldn't allow India to really get the first innings lead in the test series from now on, because they know that the top order struggled, and not every time is India going to get bowled out for 36 for the lowest ever score in test history. So with a normal batting display, this could have well been India's game, but it isn't for now, and that's how it is. So, and of course, we saved the best for the last. Josh Hazelwood and Pat Cummins consistent bowling in India's second innings. They hit the right length, right line consistently, and it was just one of those days where it was a combination of bad luck, good bowling, and not quite a great batting display by India. So when we look at the second test and when we review the first test, of course the team morale will be down, but they have to say that not every day is the ball going to nick their bat. There will be a play and a miss. Not each one of the top five batsmen will nick one behind or get bowled for that matter. Of course, they have to pick their best team and everything. But the days can be better for India. They really have to motivate themselves. 7 days, have to regroup and come out on the field, all guns firing on the Boxing Day Test match. Now, that's it from our side on the podcast today. Do join in for the for the review of the second test and the preview of the third test, and give us the feedback on this podcast. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Have a good week, and enjoy the India-Australia series as we hope for a better Indian performance.